And tributes continue to pour in from around the world following the announcement earlier on of the passing of King Goodwill Zwelithini. The king succumbed to COVID-19 related complications at Durban's Luthuli Hospital in the early hours of the morning after an illness. He was 72 years old.
The Zulu nation is in mourning. The sudden death of King Goodwill Zwelithini sent shockwaves throughout the country. The king was admitted to hospital more than a month ago. At the time, Nkosi Mangosuthu Buthelezi, in his capacity as traditional prime minister to the Zulu monarch and nation, officially stated that the king had been admitted to hospital so that doctors could monitor his glucose levels. Over the month, Nkosi Buthelezi continued to update the nation on the king's health.
His Majesty entered hospital to attend high glucose levels. He was not and is still not frail in any way. Even this morning, he is fully mobile and is continuing treatment for unstable glucose. His doctors preferred that he be treated in the ICU in order to attend to this thoroughly.
When Nkosi Buthelezi made the announcement of the king's passing on SABC's television and radio platforms, he confirmed that the monarch had died from COVID-19. Due to the king's illness, some annual traditional ceremonies had to be postponed, and for the first time the king was unable to attend the opening of the KwaZulu-Natal legislature. As the nation grieves, the king's body will be taken back to one of the palaces in Nongoma.
The king's body will be conveyed to the palace, hopefully this afternoon, where we hope he'll lie in state for a couple of days so that anyone in the nation can do so. But of course I must warn that this happened at the most difficult time because of COVID-19. In other words, that we should observe all the protocols.
Meanwhile, the provincial government has suspended all government programs in respect to the king. Details of his funeral are yet to be announced. Ayanda Mhlongo, SABC News, Durban.
Meanwhile, the Thabo Mbeki Foundation has joined South Africans and many others from further afield in mourning the passing of King Goodwill Zwelithini. In a statement, the foundation says King Zwelithini will be remembered for the important role that he played to bring about peace in KwaZulu-Natal during a turbulent period in our nation's transition. He also upheld an abiding commitment to nation building, the advancement of our democracy, it says. The foundation goes on to say that consistent with the role of South Africa's traditional leaders as custodians of customs and culture, His Majesty was particularly concerned with the preservation and restoration of indigenous knowledge systems, at the center of which is the principle of self-reliance as an important instrument of confronting poverty and underdevelopment. The Kingdom of Lesotho says it is also saddened by the passing of King Goodwill Zwelithini. South Africa and the Mountain Kingdom share a rich cultural heritage. Lesotho's Seso Bering Seso says the King's passing is a great loss for both nations.
The demise, the passing of His Majesty has a sense of great loss to us as a family and to us as a nation. So we are perhaps in the process of accepting the sad news, and obviously sending our condolences not only to the family but to the entire AmaZulu nation.
It's so dearly sore. It's very, very saddening to find such news. Nobody would rejoice in the passing on of Nkosi AmaZulu. It's sad because he still had some time. Well, according to me, he still had some good advantage on his age.
So as mentioned, he was the longest serving of all 8 AmaZulu kings, and And in South Africa as well, he served about 50 years, King Goodwill Zwelithini. He's survived by his 6 wives and 28 children. His eldest son and immediate heir to the throne, Prince Lethukuthula Zulu, died in November last year. We're joined now by Shalo Mbatha, who's author and lecturer, Department of History at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, who's also a historian. A very good evening to you, and thank you so much for speaking to us.
Oh, thank you so much, Tipiso. It's a pleasure to be here.
So let's just go back to what this means, being the custodian of culture and practices of the AmaZulu kingdom. So he was crowned as the 8th monarch, as we mentioned, at a traditional ceremony in Nongoma. Was attended by about 20,000 people in 1971. So he had to also grow into this role. Somebody would have had to teach him the customs, the practices as well. How important is that, the perspective from which you are taught your heritage?
You know, to be so, I just hear you say that he was the 8th king to be coronated. What happened to the rest of the other kings before him? Unless you mean to say he's the 8th emperor. Because remember, the Zulu nation or the empire did not start
absolutely
away. So I just thought it's very important that the job that I do, that we keep it real, and then we remind people and we try and keep it, we tell the truth at all times, you know? So I know I'm going to come back to your question to say, who taught him? How did you go about it? How does he remember? And how do all other Zulus remember the history, right? However, just so you know that a lot of people think that King Zwelithini, in fact, his proper title is emperor, because in isiZulu, isilo samabandla onke, meaning king of kings. Remember, King Shaka is the one who started the empire, okay? Prior to that, there were kings. Yeah, did I put that in context for you properly?
No, I mean, this is exactly why you're here, to educate us. And we have been saying Isilo Lamabandla. So, you know, you're absolutely right in giving us that context, that it's not as if the Zulu kingdom was established now. So let's go through that lineage, the importance of what's been passed down. As we just mentioned, the Thabo Mbeki Leadership Foundation spoke about his role in, you know, promoting indigenous knowledge systems. So that had to also come from somewhere.
Yes, you see, let me just take a step back. King Zwelithini was born by King kaBhekuzulu, who was born by King Mapumzane. King Mapumzane was the first Zulu king, if you like, emperor, who was born in exile. He was born in St. Helena, because his daddy, King Dinizulu, was taken to jail in St. Helena. Okay? And then King Dinizulu was born to King Cetshwayo, the one who defeated the mighty English Empire in 1879 in San Juan. Okay? And then, prior to that, King Cetshwayo is actually the son of King Shaka. But a lot of people don't know that. But he did not take over the throne immediately after King Shaka passed. What happens is when King Shaka passed, his paternal brother, King Dingane, took over. Then after King Dingane, King Pande took over. And then after King Pande, King Cetshwayo took the reins of the Zulu nation, okay? However, King Pande, King Dingane, and King Shaka all born to King Senzangakhona. But even before King Shaka became king, there was King Sgujana, who died between King Senzangakhona and King Shaka. King Senzangakhona was born by King Jama, who was born by King Daba. And then King Daba was born by King Mageba. And King Mageba was born by King Malandelu. Malandelu uzalo Nkosulu Zumani. But in between, you had Princess Mkabayi, who was also one of the regents of the Zulu monarchy. And she's the only female to be mentioned when Zulu kings are mentioned, as I'm doing right now. And also King Mageba was a twin. The tribes were Isizwe sikaPhunga noMageba. So now that I've given you the context and the background, I feel comfortable that I can now answer your questions very fairly.
Okay, so please go ahead then.
Okay, now, you see, the Zulu have a special way of communicating their knowledge. And this is always embedded in song, izithakazelo, in metaphors, izaka. Okay, everything that the Zulu people say in the language is very, very much rich with culture. And then, for instance, His Majesty, the one who just passed now, he he made sure that all those old ceremonies came back to life so that we don't lose where we come from and the culture. So that even the smallest child who's about 3 years old, Zulu, is probably going to be able to tell you is Tagazel. They may not know at that time what it means, but they're so very proud to say Mina Ngombata, Ngushandu Gandam. You know, so that in all the history is always verbally told, whether through song, through every aspect of culture, yes.
Now, just to talk about the king as a person, I saw somewhere that says that though he was very good at stick fighting, he had a particular love for soccer.
Yes, and his jersey was number 1. So the girls he was very handsome when he grew up. So whenever he used to kick the ball at when they're playing soccer matches, they'd all scream and say 1-1, 1-1, And also he used to sing a lot. He had an angelic voice, And his favorite song that he used to like irritating his sisters with when he grew up was The Silent Night. Can you believe that, Tsepiso?
So where would that have come from?
You mean
as you said, it was one of his favorite songs that he used to like irritating his sisters with. So what is the story behind that story?
You see, he grew up in a home that was polygamous. So the families, in the Zulu language, there's nothing called half brother or half sister. Everybody grew up together. As long as we shared one parent, so it's either a paternal sister or a paternal brother. So when they grew up, and the dad, whenever he used to come visit whatever palace they were at, to welcome him, they'll just sing for him. Because King kaBhekuzulu loved music a lot. He was very musical. As you can tell, that one of the aunts, Mntwana Makoko, was a very renowned musician.
Yes.
So music and culture and all are very much in the family is very much active in that space. So, however, they were also very, very Christian. So Silent Night became obviously that when they grew up at school singing songs, and because it had this strange kind of, even the melody. So he sang it just to irritate them, So yeah, he grew up in a very warm family.
And quite a number of leaders have lauded that about him, how he used his Christian faith to unify not only within the AmaZulu nation, but obviously somebody who is well traveled and is known internationally as well. His legacy, what should we remember most about him as a leader? As you mentioned, he's the 8th emperor. What has been his unique leadership style that will remain with us?
Personally, what I think and what I learned from him is patience. Imagine you're growing up and you're a descendant of one of the greatest African kings that ever lived. And when you take over your the throne, you are growing up under apartheid. That didn't give you space to breathe, And don't forget, he was also very big in perseverance. So he said to me when we had a chat and I asked him about how did he make it, that, he didn't lose his patience with everything that was going around him. He said, I had from a very young age, I had a very big responsibility to make sure that I keep the Zulu nation intact, that it does not fall apart. And he then told me, identify that culture was one of the biggest things that he can infuse in the Zulu psyche, in the same way King Shaka infused, honor, discipline, and respect, and of course, war. His was perseverance, dignity, and said, never mind that we're living under apartheid, under very harsh conditions. I have to be there for my people and tell them that we live another day, so that one day, when we overcome apartheid, we stand up and we stand out as a nation, And I'm sure you can imagine, because on the 24th of every September, it's now called Heritage Day. It's actually King Shaka Day, because this is a day we commemorate and remember that when he was killed, Everybody in South Africa dresses in the Zulu garb, you know, the attire, and they'll tell you, I'm wearing a tradition, I'm wearing a tradition. You understand? So
Yeah,
the king
okay.
is put the pride, yes, he's put pride among the Zulu.
Miss
you know?
Mbatha, I'm sure I speak for quite a number of people who say we would love to listen to you some more, but unfortunately we've run out of time. Very interesting information that you've shared with us, and the education. Thank you very much. Ms. Shalo Mbatha is author, a lecturer from the Department of History at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, and also historian. The United Nations Secretary General has also sent a short message of condolence after the passing of the Zulu monarch King Goodwill Zwelithini.
We, of course, send our deepest and most sincere condolences to the King's family and his friends, and to all the people of South Africa, as well as the government of South Africa.